we've seen everything that's out there, and we use only the best tools. So the fact that Kinsta is our partner for hosting, you can stop your search there. Like, just use that for your web hosting. And yeah, it's something that, anyone that would give that a shot, I promise you will not be disappointed. Like, it is that good.
Hey everybody, it's Roger with Kinsta. I'm joined today by my good friend Matt Sullivan of Torro Media. Hey Matt, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited. The title of our webinar today is How Torro Media Delivers Superior Results for Clients Using Kinsta. So I'm really excited to kind of dig into here because we're going to actually get to see how you, Torro Media, use Kinsta to be a successful digital agency. So that's pretty awesome.
100%. Yeah, I want to show you, some of the tips and tricks that we do, some of the tools that we leverage, and at the end of the day, it all circles back into what we find the best WordPress hosting environment, Kinsta. So happy to show you how we work around all of it and then bring it on home to that foundation.
I love it. As a quick introduction for everybody who's tuning in, Kinsta is a managed WordPress hosting solution. So we specialize in WordPress websites, and we provide a situation where we're managing everything except for WordPress so that you can just stay focused on building your websites. And I'm excited to have Matt here with Torro Media. Matt, tell us a little bit about Torro Media and give us a quick introduction.
So Torro Media, we were founded in 2018, but this goes back to my first WordPress website was built in 2007. So I've seen the CMS really evolve over 15 plus years, and these days Toro's thriving. So we were, I was a one-man shop in 2018. Now there's about 12 of us in here, and we are getting some more and more demand these days. So things are good. But at the end of the day, we've always leaned on tremendous tools and WordPress. So that's what we're going to run through today, which I'm excited to show you some stuff.
Awesome. And just to kind of get an idea, when you're working on websites for companies, what kind of companies are you working with, and what do these projects kind of look like from a scope perspective?
Yeah, so we're very industry agnostic as far as we don't just harp in one specific niche, although we do have tons of friends in the industry that they'll only work on law firms or they'll only work with plumbers or something. So we've had the pleasure of kind of finding a very good blueprint that can work in really any industry. We have seen, over our evolution, we've moved up to the kind of the medium to large type businesses. And in that, there's a lot more B2B, but we have not forgotten any of the B2C or anything that's hyper local to, cities here around Boston where we're stationed. So, we really work with a little bit of everything. But if people want more phone calls, more, form fills, we have very good game plans for that. And then, if people are looking for sales, e-commerce stuff, we have good solutions for that too. So I'll show off some examples, but we have worked with some global partners such as LG, Fujifilm, some of those big players. But then here local to Boston and just in and around Massachusetts, we do work with Cisco Brewers, Big Night, Mike's Pastries. We actually have a ton. If you're into really good Italian dining, the north end of Boston, that whole street, Hanover Street, we have a dozen clients on that one street. So, sometimes we do the little Toro tour, and we'll actually go down Hanover Street from client to client and, eat dinner there, get a pastry over here. So, we did that for the Christmas party 2 years ago.
Beautiful. It sounds like a lot of fun. So I think what's exciting today is we're going to kind of see a little bit maybe how the sausage gets made. And the first thing to kind of dive into is your web design process. And so I'm really excited to kind of hear and see you've got some examples to show of how Torro Media actually approaches a client project and kind of works through it. So let me hand it over to you and kind of dig in here.
Yeah, let me share my screen. And, we ended 2024 with a bang because we got interviewed by HubSpot and about our award-winning process and our processes. So they kind of took that, published an article on the ideal process for launching a website in 2025. So we have some really good recognition there. But then they also rated us as the #1 WordPress Web Design Agency. So that was something that we kind of couldn't believe it when that happened, but that is something as far as best WordPress web design companies. We were rated right there, #1. So,
well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, we've kind of been doing WordPress for quite some time, so hopefully we have it figured out by now. But that is something that, again, industry agnostic. We've got some great partners and people that we work with that we showcase on our site. And happy to jump more into why we love you guys, why we love Kinsta, and again, that award-winning process, what it looks like. So when we get started with anyone, in the hypothetical that Kinsta came to us and said, we really want to work with Torro Media, we would run through just some baseline stuff initially. We always want to know kind of the before and after with anyone we work with and familiarize ourselves with what they could be using at the time. So we'll run some preliminary reports just to get that baseline report. What do you guys have now? And when you go through a web design process, there's a lot of things that are going to change. So we want to make sure that we don't change things for the worse. And that's probably the #1 mistake people make is they only look at the aesthetic of the website, not necessarily the technologies of it. So we love to audit things initially so that when you push the site live, that there's no surprises there. So we'll look at stuff from like a technical standpoint, SEO standpoint. We even want to know the history of the URL so that we can understand with changes and the type of authority that the URL has, what you could be looking at as far as are you taking like one step back to take a bunch of steps forward, or is this stuff just going to have lift off from day one? So we really like to get a glimpse of that. And then while we're going through coming to that preliminary assessment / discovery is we want to know the ins and outs of the sitemap. So obviously that's probably the most important part in assessing a project and understanding the cost associated with it is how many templates do you need? What's the goals at the end of the day is really the first question we ask. And we'll typically break that down between macro conversions and micro conversions. Macro, someone lands on your site, what's the best case scenario? So for you guys, best case scenario is probably someone signs up for Kinsta, right? That's it. Macro conversion there. If not, right, you go all the way down and you guys have, social media icons around here somewhere, like we'd consider something like that a micro conversion. You get a follower on LinkedIn, you get someone to sign up for your newsletter, you're good, but those are the types of goals that we want to prioritize at that start because we'll take all that information and then build out a pretty intense sitemap using octopus.do. So this is something that, obviously we're zoomed out before at a 30,000 foot overview. Now we're starting to zoom in and really dial in on the specifics of page structure, what's the purpose of the page, interlinking. You can see some of these arrows going around. How do we get to an interlinking strategy that helps with SEO? And at this point too, we can actually put in content. So if we're talking about any of these pages, FAQs or something like that, we can look at not just the structure, but also the substance that's going to go in the page. And you can take it one step further and actually start talking about, SEO, tags, metadata, things like that. So we haven't even looked at, thought about development yet. We haven't even started designing anything yet. We're right now creating the foundational blueprint so that we can have a very successful project. So in that preparation at the start and the communication that goes along with this is going to make or break the project from day one. So this is why we really get in the weeds when it comes to the discovery side.
Yeah.
And, while that stuff's happening, we do want to set things up in Kinsta, right? We want to kind of pull in verifying the domains that are going to be used. If they're on Kinsta, right? Hopefully they're already on there. If they are, then we'll spin up like a staging environment so that we can start to work from the staging area. If not, then we'll just bring them straight into Kinsta and start working on it and change the DNS records later on. Yeah. But not to get too in the weeds of that, but it is something that, and I'll show you once we get to it, that as we kind of prep the environment, when we get to development, it gets super, super easy to put it all in there and then push it live like in 2 seconds. So
Absolutely. And so just to pause there for a second, like, and back up and kind of cover, I think what's interesting here, maybe for a lot of businesses that are, maybe they've worked with agencies before, or maybe they're brand new to this, there are some aspects of your process that are definitely unique. The site template, the wireframing that you're doing there is great because you're actually putting the content in so that the customer can start visualizing things. I don't see any lorem ipsum happening here. And that seems like a big refreshing thing for a lot of people to witness.
Yeah, that's always, the biggest holdup of any project I've seen is content. So typically people will load in the lorem ipsum. You'll get some gibberish, and that's stuff that it's a back and forth typically of like, are you putting in the content? No, you're supposed to put in the content. Well, you know the business. It's your business. And like people get held up tremendously. So that is something that we like to kind of cover at the start. Again, it's a very collaborative effort to get to the best results.
Yeah.
We will make tons of recommendations, but it is something, if we can get that out of the way, then later on it's very easy to tweak. And I'll show you actually the cool, when it comes to Q&A and or just the QA process, what that looks like. It's super easy and very interactive. People love it.
Absolutely. And just like sticking on that for a second, my experience when I was building sites for clients was, we would skip this step really. And this, looking back on the history of running my whatever agency organization it was, like this was the missing step, I think. And so for agencies that are listening, like if you're not doing stuff like this where you're wireframing things out and letting the customer start to digest what the entire project looks like, right? Because I think where I always got hung up, or where my clients would get hung up, was the homepage. The homepage was the only thing they visualized for the whole project. And I'm like, there's so much more going on than the homepage. What's been your experience of kind of bringing clients in and showing them the entire project at the beginning?
So you're 100% right. And that is something that people would always absolutely get held up on. And not just the homepage, but the desktop version of the homepage. Mm-hmm. So it's something that you can kind of prototype that out real quickly. But if you don't have the mobile side of it, or how it's actually going to collapse down in a responsive environment to go with it, it's really hard to envision what's going to be the majority of your traffic over here. So that is something that, as we have this discussion, we will do that in that next phase, which is that evolution into design. So we can kind of have this, again, zoomed out section by section, what we're prepping for content, but most clients like me are super visual. So we can't really look at a wireframe and like grasp exactly how this is going to play out. Yeah. So if we can start to bring it to life in a Figma file, we can get kind of the best of both worlds of having the prototypes. But I think one of our massive differentiators is how it used to be like layered Photoshop files that are not clickable and they're just static. But now you can actually have a clickable interactive prototype within Figma, and you can see on any device, how is this actually going to function? So it's almost like the site's coded right now, but it's not. So that's helped us get that approval in the design phase to get to development. And I think that's our main guarantee across the board for our clients, is that we're not going to develop anything until you love it. But it's really easy to love something when it looks developed and you can kind of actually play with it. So
absolutely. And you bring up a great point here, is asking clients to visualize the entire project from a wireframe or just from a homepage mock-up, right, in a Photoshop file, is near impossible, right? They have so much else going on with their lives. But the Figma file seems like that's a game changer.
Game changer, and you're looking at all the little things too on a website, like such as a hover state. Like you can't do that from a static image. You can't really, you can show multiple images, but it's still to feel it, to actually understand how it's going to have that interactive component to it. People like they don't have questions anymore. Like, because before it'd be like, well, how's this going to work? How's that going to work? It's like, well, you just took it for a test drive. That's exactly how it's going to work. So when we get to this point in the project, it's about running through, again, kind of this template by template. We address the page. We might not have it dialed in 100% as far as the content, but we'll be pretty damn close. But it is something that when this is signed off on, we're rocking and rolling into development. And this is where the fun starts to happen with Kinsta, is that they want to bring it to life. Let's do it. So, we'll prep out those environments. We'll get things loaded up here, fresh WordPress install, the latest versions, all that good stuff. And it's stuff that, before, depending on the host, there'd be some like legacy PHP versions. There'd be some stuff that, weren't the best. But in Kinsta, we're on the cutting edge of innovation with the latest versions of PHP, seeing how we can kind of innovate and work and develop things faster in these types of tools, which I'll jump more into this in a second. But when we actually code out the site and start to mess with it, there is that back and forth of getting the final approval to go live. And how do we actually go about that? So what we'll typically do is load it up into a pastel link that looks something like this. Okay. And what this is, it gives the user of the client the ability to toggle between a browse mode and a comment mode. So you can just browse through. You can also, see how this would stack on, a mobile device. But as you're browsing through, at any point in time, if you don't like something, or you're like, what, we should actually say something different here, you toggle to comment, click it, and then you can say like change photo. Can't spell, but there you go. Change
Perfect
photo. So you can attach images, you can attach stuff, and then if you do click post, that goes into a comment queue that our development team and our project managers, anyone can jump into and start to tweak, to refine, and really speed up this process. So I'm not getting like a Word doc or Google doc of, hey, can you change these bullet points? It's like, no, just do it on the staging site that we did on Kinsta. Yeah. And same thing with like text suggestions. You can go and actually see exactly how it's going to look in the HTML formatting and everything, so that you want to change something, it's very, very easy to do so. And we're just, going through this queue and kind of seeing, okay, what's active, what do they have? All right, let's make the change. It's in progress. Okay, now it's in review. The client can see it. Okay, it's all done. It's been resolved. So we get this archive, excuse me, we get this archive of, all the changes they want to make before going live. And we have this whole history of perfecting the site and making sure that it's exactly how they want it. And it's very interactive, where our teams are just kind of going back and forth. And that was a cool feature for this one, actually, the dark mode, light mode.
Oh man, I got to tell you, like, that's cool. The beer can change up animation, man, you guys are killing it. You guys are killing it.
It's it's 2025, right? Yeah. Anyone can build a website for the most part, but we are trying to constantly push the limit of innovation and what we could do to make something an experience. So, if people really want to push the envelope, those are the people we love to partner with. We don't want to necessarily play it safe.
Absolutely. And to pause on that for a second, right, is those little details matter for the business, right? Because as a consumer, I'm already now having this expectation based on the website of, some level, like, wow, there's a lot of attention to detail going on here. And so when I engage that company, I'm already making these assumptions that these people are top notch and are, they pay attention to every little detail just because of how the website is so intricately done. So bravo to you and your team. Like those examples alone are pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And it's something that we've tested out everything. Like, I've seen all the hosting environments. I've seen, anything that's out there today. And there's some stuff that you'd be shocked people don't have, but you guys bundle it up in like the perfect scenario. So, whether it's when it's more on the development side and efficiencies of the, WP-CLI, stuff, you guys have, the application performance monitoring that if we need to know something about the site and analyze anything enabling this, reviewing what's been monitored there, and then we can just deactivate it after. But it's something that we have all these like really, really cool tools at our disposal that you don't find in other hosts. And some of them are the most basic, like search and replace. I can't tell you like how many times on other stuff they're like, oh, just install the plugin that does search and replace, and then you can do it that way. It's like, well, that opens me up to like potential vulnerabilities. That opens me up to a lot of other things, and another plugin that I have to monitor. It's like, if I just had a good host, or not a good host, like the best, I could just do it here. So like that's the type of stuff that when you are using WordPress, you are also potentially leveraging things such as certain plugins. So that's part of the reason why people love WordPress. But it is something that you can easily monitor, you can easily update, and really maintain, and not be fearful. And I think that's one of the scary things is, I just updated that in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So
and you didn't have to log into WP admin and navigate and all that stuff. It's just right here.
It's all right there. And that fear, I think, because like anyone that's been in WordPress for a while, it used to be very different. Not that different, but different enough. But it's one of those things that, like, if I'm going to go make a change to the site, first of all, I have zero fear in the way that I just did it through Kinsta. That was phenomenal. Yeah. But what I'll typically do is run a quick backup. And, if I have, like, say, whatever, plugin updates, or we're making, like, text changes, whatever the case may be, I'll run a quick backup. And I didn't even finish my sentence, and it was already done. So I'll go make the change now, and then in the hypothetical that, hey, something happened, whatever, you can easily, one click, bring that back to life, and just restore that backup. So as something, if people are like, just flying through WordPress, they can totally, feel like not feel any fear and feel very safe in that things are not just backed up on a manual basis like that, but there is the automated backups. So that is something that you basically have 2 weeks, which is all you really ever need. If you pay attention to your site, it's typically like a 24, 48 hour thing that you need. But like I could go back and restore anything on staging, on the live site, either way. And that's just, again, I'm just scratching the surface of some of the things we're using. But one of the main things I did want to touch on too is that how like fast Kinsta's innovating, like things like early hints. Like this isn't even a thing with other WordPress hosts. So having the ability to enable early hints, which helps us with page speed, is again giving us a massive leg up when it comes to like SEO. And that's something that, yes, we do web design, web development, all that fun stuff. But when the site goes live, right, then there's this whole other world of, how do we get things to perform? How do we get things to, edge out competition on search results? And typically it comes down to like a good host, performance, things like that, besides having good content. But in the world of AI, I think we can spin up some good stuff. But these are the things that move the needle, that change it. And we saw that in 2024. Quick glimpse of one of our partners right now, that beginning of the year, they were on a separate host, and they were getting about 200,000 impressions a month. And then we changed them to Kinsta. We did some optimizing. And by the end of the year, they were closer to 600 to 750,000 impressions per month. So it's something where their visibility basically tripled. And we have, that kind of attribution, because the site didn't change like a lot, but we changed a lot of the tools in the background to make it that more fast, to make it that much more of a better experience for the user. So there's a lot of things too, Roger, that I think people take for granted that are built out in here. Something as simple as an SSL certificate and enforcing that so that your site has a universal rule to be encrypted across the board. There's like little things like that when we launch a site, these are all mandatory in our processes, but some people just aren't aware of them. So, and again, that took 2 seconds to do. So, yeah, I could go on and on, probably analyzing all these different tools. The caching too is nuts, but yeah, it's something that clearly we're a big fan, and our clients are a huge fan of our hosting. So, my hat's off to you.
Well, we appreciate that. I appreciate that, and the team definitely appreciates hearing all of that. And like I said at the beginning of all of this, our focus is to let you be focused on your website, WordPress, and everything on that. We're the foundation. We're taking care of Nginx, MySQL, all of these systems that make WordPress work. We're trying to make it as easy as possible so that you can just be focused on building, making new content, and then just ensuring that the results are there, right? The good SEO, like you're talking about, and just having a fast website when somebody goes to it. Again, kind of going back to the attention to details. If you have a slow loading website, that's immediately reflecting on your entire business. And so if it's loading quickly and people they don't think about it unless it's slow, right? And so it's really important that you've got this good foundation. So this is all really great to hear, and I love to see, the different features that you're enjoying the most. And, going back to the backups really quick, there was one tab in there for the system generated. And so one thing to highlight, anytime you do a search and replace, we do an automatic backup, so that, because as you know, with search and replace, with great power comes great responsibility. You can hose a website with just one bad search replace. And we thought ahead of that. And so we make a backup for you so that, if you do something, you can quickly restore right to before. So,
right. No, there's a million other tools that you guys have in here, and I just take them for granted these days. So until we actually start to dial into this, I'm like, oh yeah, that's another thing that we love, including like Kinsta's API, right, for automated workflows. It just keeps going. Yeah. But no, it is something that I think people go about looking at hosting wrong. I think a lot of people that we talk to, the first thing they'll look at is just affordability, and I think that's the wrong way to approach website hosting. Is they're like, oh, it's hosting. What could be the difference here? And it's like, if you actually looked, it's like insanely different. So I would not shop based on price. But even also at that, Kinsta, you guys are at the the market standard these days.
Beautiful, man. Love to hear it. So we've kind of gone through the step-by-step process there. Any real-world examples you kind of want to talk about that could kind of show how this is done?
Yeah. So, I showed that example of just the impressions over the course of 2024, and that was literally the change of hosting with some better optimization across the board. Yeah. And that's a company that, they do tens of millions of dollars a year in revenue, and to generate that much more awareness is crazy for them. They were very, very thrilled about that. Yeah. But no, even just like last month, we had someone, I can't name them, but we moved them to Kinsta. Okay. And they had their best December by a lot. And I'm not saying it was all that. We did a bunch of marketing. We did a bunch of other things with that. But that month in marketing, they spent about I think 40 or 50 grand in marketing. But they made back almost 300,000, and it was something that they had a really, really good end of the year, and they took a lot of our advice in doing a lot of changes. That I was like, if you really want to prep for 2025, do this month. You'll see some changes in December, but then you'll have a great 2025, and they saw some better returns faster than they thought before starting the year.
Yeah. So, speaking to that for a second. I think that's one of the things, you're talking about December, right? When a lot of companies will see a big influx of traffic, holiday season and whatnot. And that's one of the things that Kinsta's providing as well, right? With our CDN, Cloudflare, making sure that the site is available so for that unexpected traffic spike, and really performant again, because as you know, you can experience at other hosts is as traffic increases, the performance of the site can drop. And that's something that we've been very focused on, is making sure that the caching is strong, making sure that, you know, we put everybody sits behind Cloudflare Enterprise at Kinsta. And so we added that as just that additional protection and also performance improvements so that people are getting the best experience possible when they come to your clients' websites.
Yeah, the CDN is next level. Like, that is something that is very, very, very noticeable. And if we spin up a brand new site, the flexibility of like having options, because typically you just are loaded up into some shared server somewhere on like another host. But with Kinsta, that is something that you can be very strategic about your server in proximity to your location. If we're starting a brand new project and we are spinning up a brand new fresh WordPress install, it is something that we have the ability to choose a data center that is, again, kind of in proximity to the location. You always want to be closest to your server for load times, but it's something that the CDN is just so insanely strong at Kinsta that I really don't have concerns about which data center we use, to be honest, because it's going to outperform anything else that we've used or our partners or clients have used in the past. So
Sure.
very easy to spin that up.
Absolutely, and I think another point to bring up when it comes to the data centers is we're seeing more and more regulation around websites. And like in the EU, right, there's a lot of regulation that the data has to be hosted in the EU. Canada also has this. Saudi Arabia has this. And at Kinsta, you can choose the data center that is in those regions so that you're compliant. And again, it's a massive headache, but we make it's just a drop down, right? You just choose from the drop down, and now your regulatory compliance is taken care of.
One thing that I think gets overlooked, but I want to give a shout out, is Kinsta hands down has the most helpful support out of like anyone we worked with. And I mean that. Like, there was a scenario, and this was like a couple years ago, and I shouldn't have been looking at my phone, but I did, that something happened, and it was Christmas. And I looked at it, I was like, oh man, I should really go do this. And I just like pulled up, a Kinsta live chat. I was talking to someone within like a minute, and they were like, gotcha, boom, problem solved. They like fixed something that could have ruined a great day. But it's something that we talked to a real person in no time, and their expertise and what's going to work best is always nice to have in your back pocket. So that's something that I know, if I'm not available or someone here has a question, that I'm like, go ask Kinsta support because like you guys just have the best, way to kind of be very helpful to your clients.
Oh man, that's really the feedback that warms my heart the most, because I know how hard our support team works and just how incredibly knowledgeable they are too.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that they've been insanely helpful, and they always drop in a really funny GIF. Typically, that is just you're just talking to good people over there at Kinsta. So, shout out to Jeffrey too. I feel like I bug him too much, but nah, you guys are great. So I do appreciate that.
Excellent. We love to hear all of that. So kind of getting into wrapping things up here. We've gone through a ton. I really appreciate you kind of pulling the curtain back and showing us how the magic happens. As we kind of close out, what if somebody wants to hire Torro Media, what's the best way to get in touch? And when somebody shows up at your doorstep, what's the ideal client? Like, they have X, Y, and Z ready to go to give to you. What really helps you kind of jumpstart a project?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Because a lot of the time when people like come to us, they don't know all their problems, and it's kind of like a trip to the doctor, where you're just like, what's wrong? Can you prescribe me something? So it's kind of the same thing where people will come to our website, they'll find the buzzword of what they think they need, and I think we could use more SEO. I think we use whatever, Google Ads. Fill out a form or call us. Like, we'll pick up. I think that's something people are surprised at too. When they fill out a form, we call them back within 5 minutes, and people are like,
Okay.
whoa, like that's weird these days. No one tends to do that.
Yeah.
But, if someone could really think about those conversion types, I think that's good. Of like, when someone lands on your website, what is the best case scenario? And really think through that to a couple layers deep. And think about, because another big problem with web design and typical websites that we see is people always add on and add on and add on, and they never take anything away. So like, we love the idea of addition by subtraction. Is like, people keep adding new things to their main navigation or adding more drop downs, and you really didn't think it through as far as how is this all going to play out. So I do think it's a great exercise to kind of look at the sitemap, to look at what your navigation looks like, and think through of consolidation. Like, how can we kind of collapse this down a little bit to make it easy for the user? Again, performance, all these other things. It's about making the best user experience possible. So if people think through that, that's great. We get kind of a head start. But if not, it's all good. Like, that's something we'll run through and do that diagnosis of like, all right, if we were you, here's what we would do. And, we kind of give away the answers up front, but it's one of those things that people still need a partner to execute the game plan. So we love doing that. We love auditing and assessing these projects.
Wonderful, wonderful. It sounds like coming with an open mind is a very helpful thing to have.
Yes. And transparency. I think that's another thing, that the more transparent people are with us, the way better answers they're going to get, from our team. So if people are like, well, tell me how much it is. I'm like, whoa, just like, if you came to me with, hey, here's our marketing budget for next year, I can tell you hands down the best way to spend it and see a return. I can compare it to other clients, show you other things that people have gotten. But if people are like really not willing to put their cards on the table and maybe be vulnerable about their business, then it's really tough. So having that open mind is a great point.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, this has been amazing, Matt. I appreciate you, again, showing us all the magic, talking to us about how Kinsta has really made a difference for Toro. As far as 2025 goes, moving forward, are there any trends that you're seeing in web design that you're really loving? And are there any trends that you're seeing that you would really wish would stop? I'm not seeing I think enough on the news side. Like, I'm seeing more people be creative with video and have it not hinder their performance. So being very strategic in like the type of asset that can show some movement but not be overly distracting, because you don't want that. But man, there's so many practices that are just so outdated that I wish would go away. And it's stuff like 10 years ago when like a homepage hero section had like a slider and a carousel, like things like that. Like, there's statistics around it showing that like literally no one looks at slide 2, and you're just crushing your performance. There's some stuff there that you think people are gonna keep going or get to. It's just like, no, just think about what their problem is and why they would come to you in the first place, and have prepared that answer of like the questions that they're going to ask. So, I think people really need to not underestimate their user, because people aren't stupid. Like, if you showcase things in a very black and white kind of way, people will get it. You don't have to like, well, then we're going to link them over here and then we'll show and link them back. It's just like, no, you can be pretty direct. So I think people need to be a little more straightforward. You only have, again, a fraction of a second to make an impression, so you really got to make that count. Absolutely. And I think, I think maybe what you're hinting at there is maybe the difference between physical marketing and digital marketing, right? With physical marketing, you can have these carousels because you're limited, right? You only have this little billboard, or you only have, a small area to like display everything. But with a website, like, we literally have unlimited pages, right? You can make as many pages as you need.
Yeah. And honestly, with the carousel, like, there's the time and place for it, just like you said. So I do think, like, if you're posting on Instagram, carousels are incredible because it's going to recycle, the different levels and different posts again, people get a second chance to see that within that social media platform. It's not that way on a website. It's different. So
Absolutely.
I do think there's a time and a place to have some of those assets.
Excellent.
Yeah. But
One
I do
last
think...
one
please.
kind of last question and kind of something to ruminate on. We're looking at potentially TikTok being banned, and everybody's kind of like freaking out, like, oh, what am I supposed to do? And to me, my immediate trigger reaction is, well, what's your website? Like,
Right.
if all of your eggs are in TikTok or Facebook or, MySpace, right, as another example of like, if you've put all of your eggs into those baskets and either they get banned, they go out of favor, they change the rules,
Oh, yeah.
you're stuck. But when you have your own website, you have full control. What are your thoughts, and how do you kind of communicate to your customer the importance of owning your website?
Yeah, so I mean, you nailed it. Your website is your foundation. So you really need to use it as that to then have those building blocks of other channels out there. You should never lean on something so much that it could be taken away in a heartbeat. So that's something that, I mean, I've seen that firsthand with someone who's like, they had their product on Amazon, and then all of a sudden Amazon came up with their version of it, and then they totally got rid of them. It's like there's some stuff like that that's terrifying if you think things are going well. Same thing with audiences on social. So one thing we always try to do is your website's your foundation. Treat it as such. Drive people back there. And then, look at intellectual property, like your actual IP of audiences. You don't own your social audiences, but if you build a newsletter, you own that. Like, you can control that. So look at the things that are actually going to be your ownership versus something that you might get some visibility but could go away. So it is a scary thing, that I know, again, tons of people that have put all their eggs in those baskets, and now they're having that kind of like, oh shit moment where they might want to rethink that. But we've been preaching the same thing since day one. Start with your website, build out from there, and then try to have that universal repurposing of content so that it all, again, brings back solid backlinks to your site. But yeah, interesting time. But yeah, gotta start with the website.
Beautiful. Any closing thoughts that would be good to share or impart?
No, I think it's one of those things that, again, we're in 2025. There's so much incredible tools out there. And I do, tell people, and you may have heard this from other places and other sources, but it's like, it's never been easier to be successful these days because of how incredible these tools are. But it's also never been easier to be distracted right now by notifications, this and that. So if you can dial in with the right tools, like, you can crush it these days. And I think, take it from us, we've seen everything that's out there, and we use only the best tools. So the fact that Kinsta is our partner for hosting, you can stop your search there. Like, just use that for your web hosting. And yeah, it's something that, anyone that would give that a shot, I promise you will not be disappointed. Like, it is that good. So, if people have questions about web design, hit us up. You can follow us on any of our social channels. We try to offer tips and tricks and all these cool things we do with WordPress, partners like Kinsta. We try to share all that knowledge. We're very much driven by education, so don't be shy.
Excellent. Matt, as always, I appreciate your time, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thanks, Roger.